Hey everybody, welcome to Friday Night at the Crib. Um, you're welcome to join the show. I've posted the link in chat, and this is sort of a different show. Uh, we're sort of going to keep at least the first part of the show very topic specific, dealing with deflection, and the fact there appears to be a little bit of confusion about it, even for longtime players. Some of this may be boring to you if you've figured it all out, but I think I've added a few things that, as far as I know, aren't widely circulated, especially as it deals with pass-through and some other things like that. I'd like to introduce the panel from right to left. Well, I'm Hefe as usual. Waddle has joined us.
That's what the hell.
What the hell? Okay. Highlander. Well, he hasn't taken himself off mute. And then there, there we go. And George / Dragonbane.
Hey guys.
Brian / is it Brian B? Or Brian G? Which one is it?
Brian RSD, name.
Okay. And
Hello.
and then Nines. Should we wait for Nines to get back from his little break before we move on? Let's go ahead.
Nah.
Okay. But I put this together because, after every raid, I'll see people in comms saying they're going to turn their malice into their FM fleet or something really silly as it deals with how you're supposed to deal with Conqueror Halls. I realize that there's a couple of ways to sort of run some exploits dealing with, not that they're bad, but dealing with range or repair time or things of that nature where you can effectively use a Conqueror Hall when it's not intended by Kixeye to be used that way. But generally, a lot of people get frustrated when they see the damage type deflections listed, and they take it against a target that creates those kinds of damage, and they think they're gonna be doing okay with it. So first, we're going to start off with a few definitions. Assault deflection, which you will see not on Conqueror Halls, but you'll see on the more recent Siege and Garrison Assault Halls. And that's the amount of damage that a ship averts from ship-based weapons. And it is not... it's not bypassed in any way. Siege deflection is the same thing, but it deals with land-based weapons. And then you got damage-specific deflection, which is also per salvo, and it's also a similar kind of deflection. But, as I listed, it's explosive, penetrating, radioactive, ballistic, corrosive, concussive, all the major 6 damage types. I'm excluding plasma. But the way that Kixeye has set it up, it's not, these halls that have this aren't intended to be used in PvE applications, player versus environment, which we'll get into a little bit what exactly that means, because it's not as clear cut as it seems. Deflection bypass, which I brought up a little bit earlier, that deals with basically PvE targets, bypassing that damage-specific deflection. Defense bypass deals with your defense resistance, which you see on pretty much all your other halls except for your Conqueror halls. The Revenge is the only one that has any sort of defensive resistances, and that's, well, they have negative ones, but they all have a defense bypass that, or defense handicap of 100%, which prevents you from putting them on. And deflection pass-through, which is the minimum amount of damage that the amount of damage that you're going to take, irregardless of how high your deflection is. So we're going to get into all these definitions a little bit further. I just wanted to make everybody aware of, some of the basic definitions. And what is PvE versus PvP? It's not as straightforward as you would think. It's player versus player. PvP isn't just player versus player. As far as the rules that have been put out by Kixeye, and that I think is in a large part due to the fact that there was a lot of pre-existing targets that were set up prior to this, including all the cargo that people hit, and your older campaigns, the non-TLC campaigns, follow the same rules as if you hit a player's base, player's fleet, or a megaship, which are, player versus player. I've talked for a while. Anybody have any comments on what I've already gotten into?
Could you go a bit further into how non-TLC campaigns or PvP? I don't understand.
Because your damage specific, there's no damage specific resistance bypass. I see people all the time going in there and deflection bypass. I'm sorry. Yeah, we're going to get into the how complicated it is that they've used a lot of the same words to mean different things. But on the left-hand side, I've listed the ones that are strictly PvE as far as the rules that impact your ships go. So, but you got that one straightened out, Brian?
Where's mute? Yeah, all set.
Okay.
Where's mute?
No
I had to find a mute button.
Okay. Now we're going to get into taking those definitions and trying to figure out how they apply to your game. Damage-specific deflection, which is in all the Conqueror halls and on your Valiant Defender hall.
Although that's, I am going to interject just for a quick note, because I actually addressed this in the article. Damage-specific deflection was actually originally had been come up and was slated for both Conqueror and Defender. So I would not be surprised to see it start showing up on Defender hulls as they come out.
Yeah. I mean, the most recent one, the Valiant, it did have it on there.
Yeah.
And I think, as it deals with the class-dependent specials and armors and things of that nature, I hope in the future that they somehow merge Conqueror and Defender into a single class, since those two were basically going up against each other. But the red shows an interaction in which your defense is going to be bypassed. So if you take a Conqueror Hall against a PvE that's just ships, let's call it the Draconian Armada, none of your deflections are going to work. But if you took it against a player that had the same, prototype hunters and whatnot, all those deflections are going to work. So it's a little bit confusing, even though it's the same hull and maybe equipped the exact same way, you're going to fare very differently one versus the other. The same thing happens with, PvE turrets, like you'll see in, that's all you see in the Draconian mining bases. You're going to get, all that's going to get bypassed. But, go ahead.
Heavy, you mind if I give an example?
Sure.
I took the Malice into the High Tides campaign, and it lasted about 6 missiles, even though it does have penetrating deflection.
Why did you do that? Just to, you like pain, or you thought it might work?
30-minute repair spotter to take out a couple of the scattergun turrets.
Yeah, that's what I was sort of referencing earlier. I sort of rushed through it, was the fact that there are certain reasons and very niche reasons to try to tank Conqueror hulls into these targets because of the very low repair efficiencies they have, how quickly they'll repair, that you might get away with something, and people have done that in certain instances, and I think it's one of the reasons that the rumors out there that they're going to stop allowing Conqueror hulls to go into these targets. So the next one is assault deflection, which you see associated with a lot of the R5, the highest tier armors. You see associated with a lot of your newer, almost all your newer ships. Your Punisher. Which these aren't newer ships, but your Punisher, your Apollo. All those have some degree of assault deflection, and the assault deflection works great against PvE ships and PvP ships. There's no bypass for it, except for one raid, that got me banned from the forums, which was the first Apollo raid, where they appeared to sort of break their own rule associated with that. But that's another story. But assault deflection only works against ships, doesn't work against turrets. Siege deflection, opposite of that, only works against turrets, not against ships. There's no bypass for it. It works all the time. But all the ships that have assault and siege deflection also have defensive resistance. And what's gone on? I put one in orange, but I'll get to that later. But that works against any ships. There's nothing that I know of at this point in time that will bypass your resistance. But you go to PvP turrets and you look at
weapons. Well, the defense resistance is actually has been multi-layered. I mean, after the delineation, there's not much that has come out that has resistance bypasses, but we do have older weapons that do have resistance bypasses.
Okay, but they're minor. Like an example. Can you give me an example?
The
Bypass chain
missile,
gun too.
chain
Okay,
gun
yeah,
two,
yeah.
Bypass missile.
Okay, I guess I should have put that one in.
I mean, there's not that many. Yeah, there's not that many, and since the delineation, I haven't seen much. I don't know if I've seen one come out yet on a weapon, but it's something that to note.
And mostly they aren't used anyways, except some might use like a bypass chain gun as a spotter on their malice. Hint, hint.
The salvo damage.
100 range spotter.
Yeah.
Ooh, yeah. Don't do it for the damage. Don't do it for the damage.
Don't do it for the damage.
Yes.
Bad day.
But if you take a look at, through your own base and look at pretty much every single weapon that you have in every single turret that you have in your base, it's going to have some percentage of defense resistance. I'm not sure what the lowest one is, but quite a few of them are 100%. Like one of them ones I'm going to use as an example throughout this is the Executioner, which has 100% defensive resistance bypass. I use that one because it was easier to calculate, because the Bullseye, the Bullseye has 90%. So just as something that was more straightforward, as far as how it functions in the game once you start bringing all these four things together. So anything else, or should I move on to the next one? Okay. Well, I think we've talked enough about deflection so that hopefully everybody understands the basics of it. We're going to sort of go through everything again and sort of try and combine all these things. But for all the Conqueror hulls, unless there's some exception out there that I missed, we'll do an example. This is for the Vendetta, which has 15,000 penetrative deflection. So 0.5% of whatever that value is going to get passed through, and that's damage is going to occur on your ship, even if you don't exceed the 15,000. It's 0.5% for all of the Conqueror halls. So the higher your deflection is, the more damage you're going to take at the minimum if it is not exceeded. So the 75 number may look very small, but once you start using things like what's been brought up, like there's no ballistic on this one, but an example would be the bypass chain gun that Brian brought up earlier. Every one of those individual salvos is going to be doing up to 75 damage, or, in this example, whatever 0.5% of whatever the ballistic damage would be on that hull.
Can we just simplify this a bit and say if you're up against a proto-mastodon or something like that, that's firing like 12 missiles constantly at you, something like that? Or
even a rhino. Let's say a rhino. Yeah. Rhino has like 15, and you don't even have blades on it. If you have Harriers or probably even strike missiles or something that's way back in the day, you're going to be doing 75 damage each time. I've tested this one out with the missiles, and it lines up with everything else as far as the sources of these things go. And unless anybody knows any exceptions, I mean, 0.5% is the rule. As far as damage-specific deflection goes, I do not know what the minimum damage calculation is for things related to assault or siege deflection. That one is still a mystery to me, unless anybody in the panel knows what how to calculate that. Okay. I think that one might be weapon specific, but I'm not certain.
Is there not a hull or two that has Passthru like listed or something? I vaguely recall one of them had something listed.
They don't have it listed on the blueprints, but they got it listed in the data mining, yes. But what I'm saying is all the Conqueror hulls have this same ratio. It's not true of, I'm going to go to the next slide, which deals with Valiant, where that ratio doesn't hold up. And then we're going to go on to the armor, where that ratio doesn't hold up, and that ratio yet again changes. Unless you want to go back to that one.
No.
Okay. Now we go to the Valiant. Has lower deflection numbers, and that 0.5% doesn't work anymore. I don't know if there's a percentage involved or what it is, but everything that's been shown is every time one salvo hits, you're going to take 1 damage.
That's interesting right there.
So this makes this a much tougher hull than it would look based on the blueprint if you compared it to a Conqueror hull. You need to really exceed these in order to make it work.
That's really interesting right there. So it's for every single hit that you take, there's no percentage pass through like in the previous one. This one's actually it is literally just 1 point of damage.
That's what everything shows, and that's all I've been able to figure out. If somebody can prove me wrong, that would be, or what I've been reading wrong, I'd love to hear about it, because the more information that we get, I think the better.
And hey, Ren.
Hey, Renato.
Guys, how's it going?
Oh, pretty good. Yourself?
Good. I made it.
Very good.
Hey.
So yeah, it just makes this a much stouter hull than it appears based on the blueprints relative to the other one. Ren, did you catch anything earlier that you'd want to comment on?
No, I just joined. I didn't have time to take a look at anything. I'm sorry.
Okay. I mean, I can take it just 15 seconds back. That basically all the Conqueror hulls have 0.5% pass through based on their deflection numbers. That's what we were talking about just a minute earlier. So, and how it
was that estimated by some player? Is that mine data? How
I took the data mining and then tested it.
Oh, okay, cool.
I did it using, I really wish you were allowed to hit your alliance mates, because it would make it a lot easier as opposed to having to ask people that aren't in your alliance to test this stuff out. But yeah, I just used a friend of mine that had spotter ships, so he only had a single, only a single projectile coming at me, so it was very easy to count the numbers without having to freeze frame or do anything of that nature. Then we go to something that's way off the charts.
Actually, before you do that, on the previous one, now,
Sure.
did you pull anything for any of the other defender hulls? Or as you just did this one because it's the only defender thus far with the deflection on it?
Yeah, that's the only, again, I don't know what the minimum damage is for any other deflections besides the damage specific ones. I don't know how it's calculated or, that's
I
the
know how
only
it
reason.
works for the Vanquisher.
How does it work with the Vanquisher?
No deflection, no resistance.
Very good. Yep. Yeah, that's why I didn't think it would be that interesting of a slide, but so we've seen these two where deflection relative to pass-through is very favorable towards deflection. 0.5% to less than 0.1%. But then we get to the radioactive plates. I wasn't able to test this one. I'm just using the same data points that I saw in the data mining before that I was able to confirm with playing in-game. They all show the same pass-through of 650, but the deflection changes. So you're if you wanted to get 5,000, which we've talked about this a little bit before, if you want to get 5,000 radioactive deflection, you're much better off putting on radio plate 4 than a 1 and a 2 by, quite a, you're going to take twice as much damage if you do the 1 and the 2 relative to the 4. So, anybody else have anything on this one? Or does anybody have any experience with this? Because I've read a lot of stuff where people were putting on radio plate 2 in the forums or other places, and they were very unhappy with them. They were like, "It's not doing anything." And I think that's due to this fact where they're still taking a lot of the damage is passing through.
And I think that's part of the original design, because if you remember, this used to be called shockwave plate.
Mm-hmm.
So the high pass-through was there kind of like so it doesn't block the radioactive damage from a direct hit per se, but it blocks what you get on a shockwave, which is the big value, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And I hope people complaining that they were taking too much damage are not the people who are asking about putting this on a Centurion to do mines, because then it gets 100% bypass.
Yeah, which was a little bit confusing because, the only posts that we saw that were really associated about this from Kickside was a post that Raken put together like 6 months ago. And Shockwave wasn't really listed as a damage type. It was just the primary 6 that were listed. So at that point, it might have been a little bit of confusion based on the information that was transmitted from Kickside to the players, because is Shockwave really a damage type, or is it something slightly different? And
It's radioactive, right?
Yeah, it appears more and more that it was just radioactive, since they haven't been able to parse the two apart. But for a while there, people thought it was a different damage type.
Which is not, and I agree that there's a lot of confusion, and I've suggested they should either give a warning when people put that on a hull, or it should be in capital letters on the blueprint description, something like it, because it's not, or they should just make it like the war plate. You can only put that on Conquerors and Defenders, period, right?
Well, they did change the name of the armor, didn't they?
Yeah, it used to be Shockwave plates, and now it's radioactive plates, but that really doesn't.
What I'm saying is, like, it's very easy for someone who's not in tune with all the community pages and shows and everything to look at this armor and say, oh, that's much better than the D5R. I'm going to use this one on my Centurions to do mines. And there's nothing in the game telling the players don't do that.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, limiting it might be good. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, and we sort of got this limiting, or I have another suggestion. I don't know if you've skipped across to the last slide or two, but all right. How does this all work together? This is for revenge. I'm going to do also the same thing with a Punisher. This is just one. This is just my revenge build with. Not saying it's great or anything. It's just, those are the stats on the left-hand side. And I've made the assumption, I started off with a player blade missile. I'm not including any hull bonuses, any specials, or anything like that would increase accuracy or damage or anything of that nature. This is more just to illustrate what's different for PvP versus PvE. Blade missiles are coming from hulls. On the left-hand side, we got player versus player. We got 10 blade missiles, okay, which has a single salvo weapon with 12.2 thousand damage. It has 73% evade. So on average, 7 of those salvos are going to miss me. So we've taken that damage down to 3.6 thousand. Okay, this lines up on both sides, PvP versus PvE. These are all the same. And only has 26,000 penetrative defense resistance. Still 3 salvos, but we've knocked 26% of the damage off. Again, this is ship-based, not turret-based. It's going to get changed. And as you see below, turret defense has no impact. Where the really large impact comes in player versus player, that penetrative deflection kicks in where it doesn't kick in with the PvE. The damage I'm showing there is the minimum pass-through that we saw earlier multiplied by 3 for this. So it's 0.5% of 3,700 times 3 in order to get the 57 damage, as opposed to if you took this same revenge into a PvE target, as opposed to 57, you're going to take 2.7 thousand. So I guess the lesson is, don't take the revenge into a PvE target. Okay. Anybody have any questions on this one? Okay.
No, I'm sorry. I'm actually going to interject. Laredo actually did post this in the
Sure.
in the chat, but I also got an email with the information from Raken. The Mayhem. I know a lot of people just were freaking out recently because the Mayhem was not hitting underwater at all.
Mm-hmm.
They are updating it come Tuesday. It's going to do a very small amount of damage, submerged damage. It was I think it's 59 to the target.
59 submerged damage.
Yeah, and with the 400% increase on the Tide Seeker, I think that's what they were adding it to. That's what they had been testing with when they thought that it was going to unbalance PvP. So I think they're tweaking it so people are not completely out in the cold.
Or filing tickets like my man.
They took it so the Mayhem doesn't jump out of the water 10 meters away from the target. Right? It's flying.
Oh, yeah. I mean, who the hell would call a torpedo a missile?
Exactly, right? I know.
Yeah, I had
I'm not speaking to how any of that works. I'm just passing along the information. So
okay.
I don't know. I was very surprised because I did fit him to one of my Tide Seekers. That's how we did the test. But I mean, it was, yeah. We can save chatting about that for later. I just wanted to break in and
Should be called the Flying Fish Torpedo.
Flying Fish Torpedo. Rename it. But yeah, I just wanted to break in because I got like 3 emails and the notes are going
And thanks,
crazy.
Laredo, for giving us that breaking news, by the way.
Yeah, I do have a slide on this at the end. I don't have. I decided not to include my responses from CS, but just to be nice because they were something else. I did share them with George, but alrighty. This is our revenge versus 5 executioners, and I made the same assumptions I did before. I'm not adding any specials to increase damage or accuracy or anything like this. This is just merely for people that don't really know how this works exactly and how to compare them. We're going to start off with 5 executioners have 2 salvos per. So it's 10 salvos, which is the same as the blade that the 10 blades that we showed earlier. 32.5 thousand damage, 73% of evade. So we're down to 3 salvos again. And then we've gotten rid of 73% of the damage. The next step is penetrating defense. This is okay. This one is where you start to see a change, and let me explain just the way it's supposed to work first. In the PvP game, if you look at your executioner, you have a 100% penetrative bypass on it, so this has no effect whatsoever. In theory, in the PvE game, it's not supposed to be bypassed at all, but if you take a look at some of them, you'll see 20, 30, 35% bypass on certain executioners that are NPCs, but I've just calculated it the way that it's supposed to be done because it does vary depending on what the target is. But you see about 2.5 thousand damage reduction due to that. Turret defense is going to act the same for both of them. You get a 50% reduction. And then the big change comes again in the penetrative deflection of 3700. Again, it's calculated from that 0.5 minimum damage for the PvP. And PvE, an example, if you send it into your FM target, you're going to take 3.6 million, or I'm sorry, 3.6 thousand as opposed to 56 in this instance. And again, that's why your revenges, die really fast when you try to do the wrong thing with them. Anything on this, or I'm going to go on to the Punishers, and then I think we're going to sort of wrap up this part of the show. Okay.
I think it's a good overview. I mean, some of the drag downs, like I said before, are a little difficult to follow sometimes, but with the context, it's a little bit better. I mean, I was hoping that we had some people on here that actually did have a problem understanding what it was, so we could actually, kind of chase down the rabbit hole and find out what it was that was confusing.
Well, I think we're going to get into that at the end. I think at the end, there's no we'll get into that at the end. I asked some. I think they're watching. None of them. Nobody wants to go in and say, "Oh, I couldn't figure it out because of this, that, and the other thing." Let's go to the Punisher real quick. Again, this is 10 blade missiles, the same as before. Evade has no, acts the same for PvP versus PvE. This is against ships, so penetrating defense acts the exact same way. Turret defense acts the same way because it doesn't have any impact. And assault versus siege, we're still down to no difference. In the fleet versus fleet world of PvP versus PvE, everything tracks the same. Because there's no, as far as I know, besides what we mentioned earlier, with the few odd weapons that have a bypass, blade missile isn't one of them, but the bypass chain gun, and what was the other one? I can remember one more weapon, but these are older weapons that probably nobody is really using for the damage portion of the game at this point. All right. My same Punisher build, except for this time it's Executioners. 2 salvos per, so 10 salvos, 83% evade. Eliminate 8 of the salvos, down to 6.5 thousand damage. And then the big difference comes up with PvP versus PvE as far as the deflection bypass. Why you don't want to send your Punisher into a base. That's going to be 100% bypass. So you have the difference between... Uh-oh, I reversed these. Man, I sent it to everybody. Nobody checks me. These are reversed. Well, PvE...
Oh.
Yeah, these are reversed. Damn it. Hate it when I do that. But these are reversed. It's bypassed. 92% of the damage is taken off in PvE. And PvP, all that damage is bypassed. So basically, turret defense acts the same. So at the end of the day, you end up with minimum damage in PvE versus 2.1 thousand with the PvP. Wait, no, wait. Yeah, I just reversed that one too. I accidentally deleted a slide and then recreated it. I guess that was my problem. Oh well. Anybody want to say bad things about me for that one? Nobody's talking much, so I'm giving you a chance.
That wouldn't be much of a change, but
yes.
All right. Mistakes. It's fine.
Okay. As far as this part of why we did the show, I find the current system is confusing to many, and it's poorly documented. I don't find any of this information actually in the game. You're forced to go to the forums and potentially search for things that you don't know exist. You may not know that there's a difference between damage-specific deflection and explosive deflection and assault deflection. You may just playing the game until you start realizing that things aren't working the way you think they should, that there's no difference between the two of them. One of my suggestions is to change the name of the damage-specific deflection to shielding and leave the assault and siege deflection the same. Example, explosive shielding, assault and siege deflection. Penetrative shielding. That way, at least the player knows that it's something different, that it's not the same.
Yeah.
Yeah, and also you could include within the info button within the game that shielding is bypassed in this target or things of that nature. That way you could write something that was nice and concise and would fit in their little information pop-up associated with it. So.
And what do you guys think about all these rumors? I mean, Kixeye actually goes and blocks Conquerors from doing PvE targets. Do you like that solution, if they actually come up with it?
I don't know that they can. I don't know that they can write the code to do it. But back to what we were talking about earlier with all these confusing things that are going on in the game. I'm an administrator on another game, and we do little pop-ups and things in the game to where it's actually kind of like a contest, as a test. You click it and it gives you a choice of answers. What does this do? Why would you use this here? And you get a reward for doing that. As complicated as this game is, there needs to be from Kick something for the newer players that aren't like us guys that sit down and actually read the data mining to teach these folks, what they're doing and give them a reward for getting the right answers.
And it's not even that. A lot of people just don't read the forums because maybe they don't know where they are. Maybe they can't be bothered. Maybe it's unavailable for one reason or another. Like I play quite a few
forums as well. It's hard to parse useful information there.
Yeah, I mean, you really got to just go to the top and stay there and don't scroll down and just stay there until like the one time where there's something like, let's say the Mayhem Torb thing. Like I'm sure that was technically below the pin post. So if you've been on the forums long enough, you just kind of stay in the pin post and don't go anywhere. But that's important. But they'll put something up with that, the pin post, I'm sure. But like I play plenty of games where I don't go to the forums. Like sometimes I'll go to the wikis for that game, but I just won't take in the information outside the game. But the in-game tutorial gives me enough information that I can play the game and have a reasonably fun experience. And they made a lot more complexity without really giving players a tutorial or anything. In practice, the only way I think that this would work really well in terms of deflection in PvE targets would be to A, ban the Conqueror holes from PvE targets, and B, make deflection armor Conqueror hole only, therefore completely eliminating the problem. But that's how far they'd have to go, I think.
I agree.
Because people are still going to try.
And I think the only backlash they would face, I believe, is people using vendettas to do FM. I think that's the main use of a Conqueror hull in a PvE target, is vendettas doing FM. And honestly, it wouldn't cost them much to just literally give away 2 citadels per player, right? So people won't whine and cry about it, you know. Just
well, they almost did.
That's my idea. I mean, make the cut. If you have a single Conqueror in the fleet, you cannot hit a PvE target, and you know, give people 2 citadels, everyone, period. Go.
Well, I mean, it also, I think, depends on whether or not they, give you time to adjust, because lately they've been pretty good about going, hey, this change is coming, this is what we're going to do. Like, I mean, with the change in the Armadas, they're giving us a whole month to get used to the new ones.
Right,
And,
they almost
did the same thing with the FM.
But they almost gave away the Centurions to 2 players. I mean, the hints have been out for 3 months.
Yeah,
True.
I mean, they had you could get a Centurion and all the tech Citadel and all the tech for $9 or what it was the first time. I mean,
I'm sorry,
great.
I said Centurion.
Yeah, you got.
Yeah, but you know what I mean? It's just like a lot, like you guys were saying. I mean, a lot of players don't go to any community page and don't read forums. So a lot of players aren't even aware that there's a rumor or a discussion or a possibility of Conquerors being blocked. You know, and they will be surprised. That's why I'm saying, you know, you don't upset players opening tickets. What the heck happened here? Just give them 2 citadels. You know,
And it would be so simple as the game, put in, for example, a bottle floating in the island where they clicked on the bottle and it says, hey, you need to do this. This is coming. Something easy.
And a pill, a pop-up, something like that, you know. But not when they put like a release and there's the little pop-up that comes 1 of 5, 2 of 5, 3 of 5. Most players close that on the 1 of 5 and never take a look at the other ones, right?
Yeah.
And also, if you're a newer player to the game, you're not really going to, that helps if you're, playing that day or whatnot. But if you're a newer player to the game and you win a Conqueror Hall, there needs to be something to at least drive you to the forums, if not, explain it in the game.
And I'm the biggest advocate for the new players coming into the game. And when I talk about new players, I'm talking about players below level 50. That, the current process for training a new player is 0. It, most of them get bored and leave the game within 2 or 3 days of playing. And I've recruited a lot of my friends and got them on here to try to play the game. But, I mean, there's got to be something simple in your base where when you pop up, it says, here, take this test. What does this do? You win.
Some sort of flag,
and,
like, oh, you won your first Conqueror hole. Here's what it means.
Exactly.
Yeah.
but you get a reward for knowing the right answer, and it'll teach the game in incremental pieces as you grow up through the levels.
I like
It's
that.
just easy. That's what I
They can
do in
do
the
that-
other
they can
game.
do that with they can do that with campaigns too, though. I mean, that's we've talked about that before, where they have a very good outlet to actually do that and get tech out to the players if they just didn't overdo it in terms of difficulty.
I
Well, you
totally
guys
agree.
remember?
Go ahead,
Oh, go ahead.
Nance.
Well, I was
Well,
gonna say,
I,
you guys remember Run the Trench and Down the Barrel? Those were pretty much tutorial ones that we had to do, and those started me out, and I actually learned how to play the game back when they were there. But we haven't had any tutorials like that in a while. I had a friend quit the game at level 30 because he couldn't get anywhere, and he came back after they did that fix to the XP. He's a level 56 right now, with his biggest boats being freaking battle barges. Right in the center, he's quit the game yet again.
and they did the comeback campaign. My wife's base, they gave her 4 mastodons and a Harlock Aegis to come back in, and it's fun to play with her little base. I mean, she plays it. I'm teaching her, but that's what they should do from the beginning of the game. You do certain tasks, you receive a fleet. You don't receive battle barges and hit salvage for 2 weeks to try to upgrade everything in your island. It should be incremental. You get to a point, and then you're viable in the game. You can do the things you need to do.
This is what I've heard, and seems to be correct. The smaller players that came back and got the mastodons and ages like my wife did in the blueprint for the Rhino, if you quit the game again for another 3 months and come back, they gave you more stuff.
But
it
that's
was
not the
only-
solution.
I'm sorry.
It's a good incentive to come back and start, but it's not really a solution to the issue that's an underlying problem in the game.
Exactly.
Yeah, you're right.
Unless they start brand new players, and I've said this, unless they start brand new players and they have, stuff like rhinos that you can research. I mean, make the tech accessible so that these players actually can go and feel relevant in the game. That's the biggest thing.
And
What would
I
you
am
guys-
the biggest advocate that you'll ever find for the new players coming into the game, because us old guys, are not going to keep the game alive forever. And when a new player kicks on Battle Pirates and it says, you're starting out with base 1 instructions, they've got to do something to get some new blood into the game that's going to grow up to be players like we are now.
But what would you guys say to them adding some of the older hulls, say V2H, stuff like that, into the actual researchable lab?
But are they useful enough that they should be researched?
They're more useful than the researchable stuff they've
Yeah,
got
yeah,
now.
I mean, I would,
Yeah,
I would
but
rather see
what
stuff
I'm
like
saying-
the Rhino. I
Yeah,
want to
yeah.
see like the Rhino. I want to see something like maybe not the Citadel, but they used to come out with baby versions of stuff. So there's the Citadel. Bring out something like the Nova. That'd be fantastic to have for new players.
And I still use Novas.
Yeah, and I mean, maybe not specifically the foundry holes, because those are kind of meant to be achieved in a different fashion, but like the Stingray, let's say, that's a good ballistical. The Mercury was a really good missile hull back in the day. I don't have any, but I know a lot of people love them. Just things
They
like
love
that
them
that
or
are better.
love them? They love them
Um,
currently, or they love them at one point?
Past tense.
No, they love
Not now, because they've got all of them.
Right now, they would just die with a fart from a turret.
Basically, yes. But they were freaking killed.
Yeah, something like the Rhinos and the Novas, I think they should be researchable. A week-long research for people, because you can't do the FM, you can't do so many targets, because I think the Foundry in a lot of ways is sort of a step ahead of
what it
the
should be.
Yeah, you sort of need to have that. You sort of need to have it. You can use the Novas to get a Citadel, but I don't know that you can get, like rhinos with a what's the one in front of that one?
V2H.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, have you tried nines? Have you tried, or do you know somebody that's tried to get a rhino with the V2H?
I have R15 V2Hs with blades and everything. I used them all the way up through most of the Apollo campaign because I didn't win the Apollos the first time through.
Okay, so
But
you
it's
know.
I was
hard, right?
doing.
I used to have a secondary base, like an out base. I played with it for a while. It's been abandoned for well over a year. And just a month ago, I kind of like started playing with it again, just to see that kind of stuff, right? So started hitting salvages, and yay, unlocked the what's his name, strike cruiser. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna build a few strike cruisers to do FM, right?
Yeah.
Some tiny tank or something like that. It kind of works, but making then the leap from the strike cruiser to the next one, I think, is the DNX. And one thing they didn't adjust, and that was brought on one of the pages the other day. It's you got a pole, which is the top one. If you suicide your Apollos, how long does it take to repair them? 2 hours?
Yeah.
Like a fleet of 3 hours, 2 hours, something like that.
4 hours 30.
My fleet of 2 is about 3 hours.
There you go. Now try suiciding a fleet of rhinos.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, you're insane.
It's 8 hours, 9 hours, 10 hours. Even if you put only like D2E armor on them, really lightweight, it's gonna be a 9 hour repair kind of thing. So, and I think that's just the one thing. I mean, they fix build times on these hulls in the foundry and everything, and specials and weapons. But that's the one thing that, in my opinion, was overlooked is the junior hulls take a lot longer to repair than the top end hulls, and that to me breaks the curve of keeping a player interested as they make progress in the game.
Well, I'll tell you, Ren, I started a base, and it's in January. It will be 1 year that I started a base. I went on the Firefox browser, and I started a totally legit base, and I played that base for an hour every single day. And right now, after 1 year, that base is level 40.
And does that base as a level 40? I mean, can it get FM, let's say T3 by now? It should.
I can get tier 3 on that base. However, it has been, and I've been trying to play that base like a new player, not asking for nothing, not asking for any help,
Right.
no alliance, just trying to do it on my own and learning what I can learn, with that base. And of course, I've got the knowledge, to build what I need to, and exploit it. But I haven't coined on that base at all. And again, after a year, and again, I'm spending 1 hour a day on it. That's it. And I'm level 40.
And I think the most important question to you, is it fun?
No, it's boring.
There you
That's
go.
what I was about to say. A year
It's
to
just-
get to that is just not acceptable at all.
Fucking, excuse my language, it's just freaking boring. I get on it and I actually dread, and I did it as an experiment, but it's so damn boring. Go ahead and just, for example, an hour hitting salvages, and I don't have enough salvage to do what I need to do, so I'll wait till the next day.
I'll
Well,
tell
that
you guys
kind
a
of big-
story, right? Along the same lines as what I was saying. I mean, my son has a YouTube channel. He actually was the guy who taught me how to do videos and everything. And I asked him, hey, why don't you start a new Battle Pirates base? And you could maybe do some videos for like new guys with low tech and whatnot, and like, because he does other games, right? And his answer to me, like, because he sees me playing, he said, oh no, I don't think I can do that game. It's way too slow.
Well, I'll put it this way, though. Real quick, where you said a year for level 40 and stuff like that, I would like to know then what these guys on the forums that are supposedly going around saying that they start low player bases to show other people, and they're supposedly level 50, level 60, doing tier 4 in the FM within a couple months.
That's unless you're spending 5-6 hours a day on the game, that is not freaking possible. Because I could, if I wanted to spend 8-10 hours a day on the game, I could go out and instant cargo and fill up completely. But I did it purposely, like a normal person would play the game. You get off work, you play the game, and you get off the game, you go eat. I'm not playing it like an addict, like I am now with my big base. But
I want to
But
play
there's a
it
difference
because I
between.
job.
But I think there's a difference associated with. Everybody keeps on talking about base level when they should be talking about technology level, which really isn't tracked in the game, because
Yeah.
a level 50 could be, I think Nines gave an example of, a level 54 and their best hauls were battle barges, but you run across some of these people with level 50 some bases, and they got great technology. So
I had a
Technology
go ahead.
depth.
yeah.
I had a
Technology depth.
50
We talked about
But
this
I
the other
think
day.
the big difference, like what Tal said, he played for real, like a player would do on their own. I think it's a whole different story. The guys who start, join an alliance, get a sugar daddy, and all of a sudden they're like level 40 and they have the top raid prize because someone prepped the leads for them all weekend long.
Exactly. And that's how a lot of my lower players in my alliance, they got the top level tech during a raid, and they were level 50, 52.
Yeah, and I'm not saying it's wrong.
Big-
I mean, it is what it is. I'm just saying it's a very, very different experience.
I
Like,
mean,
unless
the
you
thing
get
is,
into
it's the same game.
the game, you're not gonna slowly make your way to level 50.
Yeah.
While having fun, it's gonna be boring as shit.
Yeah, I
And
mean,
that's
we've discussed this
Kick's
before.
biggest.
We
That's
discussed-
Kick's biggest obstacle that they've got to get over now is to get some new blood into the game. And I push that on every show that I'm on, and every time I'm in the forums, and get to talk to any of the mods. That Kick has got to make the game attractive to brand new blood.
well, if let's say a new player tried to play like we did back in the day. I mean, I started 2 years ago. I started the raid the V2Hs came out, and I pretty much did that raid with battle barges and got 30,000 points for a prize. But if a new player came in and played like us, like we did, grinding out salvages, stuff like that, did not stay in the game. That's why you see these alliances, in my opinion, some of them at least giving out tiger sharks and stuff like that to players, because A, they have to have it to be able to compete in the game, and B, they would not stay with the game if they were forced to do the other stuff like we were, specters, stuff like that.
But I think the big
Look,
difference,
it's not-
like the game,
it's
I
not the
mean,
same.
when we started, doing salvages was the way of getting resources, right? There was no FM. There was like no once a month raid started a year into the game or something almost.
I think it was a little bit more than that, and it wasn't, and you couldn't even hit bases.
Exactly.
Right.
But then I'm saying you looked around, and when hitting bases started, you could do it with you researched, so everybody could hit bases, right?
Right.
Everybody could do what everybody else was doing, and what happens now is a little guy starts, and it takes, unless they get a sugar daddy, it takes them many, many, many months to be doing what the other guys around are doing and looks cool. So the game for them for many, many, many months won't be a cool thing. It will be a very slow grinding learning curve, where everybody's hitting those targets. Oh, I can do that, and I won't be able to do that for 5 more months, right?
Right.
I mean, unless you're
But we're
someone
not-
like me that. Oh, go ahead.
But Renato, the game that we started with was very much a grind. I mean, all you did was we hit salvages and to get blueprints, and we would sit around and wait by Destro's base to get like a level 8 salvage so we could get a siege rocket D95D that we never would use. But yeah, the original game was, I think, don't you think it was actually more of a grind point?
I agreed that it was more of a grind.
Sorry, go ahead.
I agree that it was more of a grind somewhat, but it was so much more of a social game
Yeah.
back then, to where when you were on forums, you said, okay, I'm trying to do this damn salvage. How do I do it? Okay, take your battle barges in, turn 90 degrees, let the mortars splash down in front of them. And then it was exciting there for a little bit. And then you built, within a few days, you could get salvage by yourself. But I mean, I'm going way back old school when I'm talking about that.
But I
Well,
think
look, I
it's the
started
social,
in later.
what hit the nail on the head is the social thing. Back when Jeff and I were starting, that all we had to do was salvage and mining and fleet versus fleet battles. Like everyone was doing that, so you just felt like you were just like everyone else, right? Everyone kind of like level playing field kind of a feeling. And again, nowadays when you start and you're doing the tiny salvages and building battle barges, and you look around and people are rocking their big ships.
Right.
A month goes by and 2 months go by, and you're still as far away from those big ships as when you started. It's demotivating, frustrating.
And yeah, the frustration part comes into, you see that you can get base parts at level 40, level 45. You see that you can get uranium at level 40, level 45. You have no idea how to build a ship to get uranium. You have no idea how to build a ship to get base parts. However, you're based, and you've got to have uranium for something that you can build that you don't have a fleet to do it with, and no idea how to build it.
Well, I think Ren was hitting towards the point I was trying to make in that back when we started, you guys started before I did. I started in the middle end part of 2011, so I was there for the first raid and stuff. And there was an aspect to the game where there was a lot of fleet versus fleet. You went and attacked other, it was sector wars. You attacked the sector next to you. There's no jumping crap like that. But the catch is that your engagement was in context to everyone else. Like the reason why it was so much of a good social aspect is that everyone was going towards this. They were essentially in the same boat, going to the same stuff. I mean, Floating Fortress, that's what you wanted, up until the first Hammerhead came out. I mean, the Floating Fortress was it. Everyone was working towards that, and it was a few months, and you were kind of catching up, getting in there. The Gauntlet started at level 22. You know what I mean? And there was a whole bunch of people there. Now when someone starts, the disparity between the beginning and end game areas is so big that you cannot go, hey, you know what? It took me a year to get XYZ. Well, you can't expect players to do that now. They have to feel engaged and relevant very quickly, or we have no new players. I mean, that's what's going to end up happening.
And I think
Exactly.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Ren.
I was just going to say, like you said, Without, is I like your idea a lot. Like players at that very low level to make progress fast should be able to do some sort of simple quest, right? Oh, if you kill these 15 salvages with that mix of levels, blah, 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 you're going to unlock this fleet that will allow you to collect uranium. And then when you unlock that, there's a little video playing showing you why the fleet is what it is, why it uses that kind of weapon, blah, 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 blah. This is how you should drive. Maybe a little battle demonstration, something that doesn't go over 3 minutes, 5, whatever. So, okay, I did the quest, I unlocked this, and that's how I use it, and that's why it has that kind of weapon, blah, blah, blah. So,
And the other thing that'll do, Ren, is put the banter in comms to where a player that is that lower level and has watched that video and that has that technology and that can do that, they ask a question, and now a newer player comes in the game, they get freaking smashed in comms.
Oh, yeah.
Because they ain't got a freaking clue what they're talking about, and they're a dumbass, they're a noob, that's always going to be that way in a gamer mentality. But if you give them the knowledge to where they can say, okay, how do I better this ship that I've got or this fleet to hit this uranium, somebody's going to talk to them. And right now what do I use to hit uranium with? Oh, fucker, come here. I'll open it for you.
Yeah.
And then you're also going to have some asshole telling you not to do it. But, whatever. I mean, I run across that in my sector where, somebody asks questions and I give them the answer, and they're like, you're a fucking know-it-all, da-da-da. You know, there's...
Shut up, you know-it-all prick.
Yeah.
Right.
Then you have the...
Yeah, good damn it.
Then you
somebody
have the
asks-
people...
The more I think about Watal's idea, the more I like it. And I'm thinking here, Kixeye could be only a step away from that. Because if you think about it, the first hole you can unlock in each class through the Foundry, it's pretty much by hitting salvages. So I think instead, and you got to do it tier 1 FM. So I think if you can do that, and when you click there and claim the hole, you shouldn't just get the little claim fancy pop-up. You should actually get a little bit of a tutorial, what you're getting and how you should build it. And the whys and wheres, you know what I mean?
Yeah, that would put some excitement back into the game to where people know, oh, God, I got this. Now I know what to do with it. Not, I got this. Now what the fuck do I do with it?
Exactly. That would prevent people from building like missile holes with hardened barrel tree, right?
Switchblades on
the range
Apollo.
by 50%. So great.
Sweet build, or like naked pictures of Greta. There's different ways to lure different players.
Well, I'll say this much. One of the things that I see that's a lot of that I've actually saw in probably 10, 15 sectors that I've been into in the last couple months has been like he said of, hey, I'll just come here and do it. I'll do it for you. But it's the fact that people are expecting so much of the lower players now. I've saw people even say, if you can't hit a 45 Armada and kill it in one thing, I'm going to sit there and sink your fleet.
Well, then they're just shit and should stop.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Just get away from that idea. I know people that'll rim and they're afraid if anyone catches them rimming without coining that they're going to instantly lose their fleet. It's got to go back to helping people rather than just simply saying you're a noob and all that shit.
You talking about the 109s?
109s, 87s, 102s, anything pretty much.
Yeah, it's the whole thing about teach a man to fish, but the thing about the complexity creep in this game is, well, it's not a perfect analogy, but there are now a lot of different kinds of fish. There's a lot to take in for a new player, and like I'm kind of tossing around an idea of a video of like, oh, here's how to build anything for whatever. But when I try to like think out the schedule, like this video is going to be 40 minutes and they're going to have to know like 20 different buttons, and they're just not going to sit through that. They're just not. No one's going to get it. And they're going to be like, oh, well, I'll get up and go somewhere else.
Well, that's why I was bringing up earlier about, a bottle floating into your island. That's a test. You click the bottle, it gives you options. What do you do with this? What is this for? And if you pass the test, you get, 1,000 uranium. And it'll make the game more interesting if they've got they're learning at the same time, but it's kind of like a test.
Shipbuild tokens, 5 to 10 to 20 coins,
Yeah, something that's congruent with what the bottle's about, what the test is about, and what level you are. You get a bottle, for example. You've got this message. You open it up, and it says, "Hey, what do you do when you build a submarine, or whatever? What armor do you put on?"
So
and
hold
it
on.
tells you.
The question I have with that then is this: say the bottle comes in, you don't know the answer, you get frustrated because you don't know the answer. Where do you go to get the answer?
It gives you the fucking answer, and you still get the reward, but you still learn something.
Well, that ain't a test. I mean, that's just a way of passing information. I mean,
but you get more if you get it right. If you get it right, you get more. If you get it wrong, you still get a reward, but you learn something because you fucking failed, But you don't get what you would have got if you'd gone and studied somewhere. Does that make sense?
I could deal with that. Yeah, I could deal with that. If there's a mechanic so they don't get completely, absolutely frustrated with it, I'm all for it.
Right, but you get 50% less, for example, if you get the damn answer wrong.
That's fine. They wouldn't know. That's.
And it
That's
tells
good,
you,
as long
you
as they
got
get
the
the
answer
information.
wrong. This is the right answer. You only get half the reward. Study a little bit more, you little peckerhead, and you'll get the best.
Yeah, I mean, I was floating the idea of, when they get to certain either levels or certain
I'm still enjoying the little peckerhead. Do better next time. But go ahead. I'm sorry.
that they get not only the blueprints to build, but I mean maybe even some pre-built stuff. Like, hey, you know what? We're going to give you this campaign. Here's something, some damn ship with here's some blueprints. It's already fitted out. Hopefully not by Kickside. Let some of the better players set up the builds and go and attack this campaign.
Right. They should get a fleet after a campaign.
But not Kickside built, because we've all saw the raid videos.
Wait, trying to say Doom can't drive?
Well, they know how to build stuff.
No,
Staff
it wasn't.
can't drive.
It wasn't Doom. That was Raken. Are you talking about the one? The
Scourge, the R16.
yeah, the R16 Scourge raid. Yeah, that was Raken.
That wasn't
That was the first
wasn't
time
the fault of the driving. That was the fault of the tuning.
That, and don't let people that think 18 coins per S set is worth it.
No, it wasn't even that. It was level 1 of the first, like, not even S set or elite, I guess, campaign. Level 1 of 5 for your A set.
Did we even go over this last slide?
We're about to, question mark?
I was looking at it. I'm like, I don't remember talking about this. I mean, I remember that the mayhem actually got changed now.
Because I came in, I'm just like, today I want to talk about the mayhem at some point, and I'm sure it'll be brought up, and if not, I'll bring it up near the end of the show. And then mid-show, I get sniped by Loretta, who's like, oh, submerged damage. I'm like, oh, well, never mind. I'll go back in my corner.
I don't know if Jeff can put it up.
Yeah, this is just, this is before the most recent information. I put this slide together, and I actually did a little screen clip of everything but the logo, from the logo down, just the Sharon, and I submitted that to customer support, and they told me to get on the forums, and I found that confusing. I guess I didn't realize I was banned from the forums for the same reason that what they just did.
Continue.
What they just did. I mean, I got banned from the forums when they changed a game mechanic radically and didn't tell anybody, which was, when they added assault deflection to the first Apollo raid. And so, I found that a little bit ironic. But
you're giving me flashbacks. I had to write a 15-page paper for ethics in gaming for my business ethics course.
Okay.
Kicks featured prominently.
I see.
That's all I'll say.
Okay, but these are both the blueprints prior to, I guess, the new knowledge that's coming out, which is the fact that now we have a.
Nowhere it says they don't do underwater damage, right?
Yeah, I'd have been a lot more okay with it if they said that on the blueprint.
Yeah, if it said submerged damage 0, I would have been fine. I wouldn't have filed a ticket, and I wouldn't have been upset with how they responded to me. Like I was, like, get on the forums, and I don't even know why they want me to get on the forums. Well, look, especially since I linked to the forums where there were. Laredo and another moderator, Specs, were both talking about this is an issue, and they don't understand it either. And then they told me to get on the forum and, group hugs, I guess.
One of the things that they keep on overlooking, too, is that the person that posted it originally on the forums posted it on November 22nd. That's when the question was actually asked. It wasn't until a video got up from testing when the hell did we test that? 2 days ago? And then we sent the question in yesterday, and I mean that's when it got looked at. And I'm a little confused about that part, that aspect. I think that aspect actually bothers me more than the fact that they forgot to put this in, because they could have fixed it then had someone answered the question. You know what I mean? Before we even could win the blueprint, it could have been answered and information out there, and no one took the opportunity to share that. I mean, the question was asked November 22nd.
Description there, I don't know if it's a type or what, but that description is very convoluted. I mean, read the second sentence. Additionally, this torpedo deals a small amount of damage to submerged damage.
That's the new one.
Wait, what?
It's wrong.
Oh God,
That's the new
you're
one.
right. Yeah, and what the hell is that?
No, this is today.
Wait, is
It
Kixeye
deals a small amount of damage to submerged damage.
Oh,
is
I got
Kixeye
you.
a foreign company that English is not their first language?
They
English
type all their
is my
stuff on a
first
phone and forget to turn off the autocorrect.
Right? I mean, English is not my first language, and I can read that and say, okay, that's a big typo, and nobody even looked at that. I mean, it doesn't make any sense.
Well, I think they were also trying to rush this out too.
Yeah. No.
I still
Maybe
I
they're
get
from
over-
California.
You are, mate.
How you doing, Brian?
I know what just became legal here. I'm
still trying to get over the fact that if we put these on the on the Tide Seeker, for instance, you're going to be doing a whole 2,000 damage to a sub underwater. Whoop-de freaking do.
Before resistances and deflection, let's not forget.
Well, 2,000 is nothing, right?
Exactly.
Like you're doing this to the sub with the 80% concussive, and you know what? Screw it. I'm throwing on well, I won't say what weapon I prefer to use. I throw on a different weapon.
I'm just saying, like they should not have called, if this was not supposed to do underwater damage, it should not be called a torpedo. I mean, that to me is actually worse than the 2 turrets they've released that are in the weapon type depth charge and do not do submerged damage.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I mean, just because it's concussive, they say it's depth charge, but it does 0 submerged. I mean, that didn't make sense. Now,
Right.
This is way worse. I mean, just like someone said, call that a missile, not a torpedo. Or a flying fish, for all I care.
Yes, there's still definitely. I mean, I'm the thing from my understanding is that when there was a reason behind it. I'm not sure. I'm all like I don't quite understand the reason behind it, so I'm just gonna.
Do we ever?
Usually, yeah, usually I can actually follow along and go, okay, that makes sense. So this one, it's, yeah, I can kind of see it. I mean, when your sub popped up and it was up on the surface, it took 3 shots and it was half dead, right? And that was only with three MAMs equipped to that Tide Seeker. So I'm
But
not
I had
sure.
to surface for you to
You had
actually
to
hit
surface.
me.
Yes. And I'm just thinking, I don't know. Maybe there's a mechanic I'm missing. I'm not sure. I just know that in the testing that they found that this was it changed the balance of PvP. So that's what they were trying to gauge this for PvE. That's what it's aimed for. I don't know how they could have gotten around that one without unbalancing everything, but I just wish, like I said, I wish they had taken the opportunity to actually share the information back when it was actually asked, not 10 days later or 8 days later, a week later after we had to actually fit it and test it, and then video it so someone would actually. I mean, no one responded until I had the video up. So that's I'm a little disappointed in that. I'll say that.
Why do I come on this show? God damn it, what's all?
It's impacting your life in a bad way, bro.
Oh God, it is so
it
much
does
fun.
make you fuzzy.
Do you see what he's commenting on? I see what he's commenting on.
Okay.
I see what he's commenting on too, and it's
Yeah.
staying in that chat.
Yes,
no
it
one else
is. I'm not repeating that.
It's good.
Brian,
And,
you need to go open one of the doors and walk out of the room. so we can finally figure out what's behind it.
I have a
Friday Night Raw.
50-50 chance. I have a 50-50 chance of getting this right. You might hear a loud thud like 30 seconds after. That means I've picked wrong.
I'm kind of curious.
I'm
Does that
laughing
really
so
happen
hard
at
I
home,
can't talk.
Darren? I'm kind of curious. Though, does that really happen? Does she say that and then do that? I mean, I'm just wow.
I don't know why that popped into my
It
brain,
is,
but
it is basically as misleading as the Mayhem Torp not dealing
Yeah,
submerged.
I was being
Brought it back. Brought it back.
It's an
Or-
absurdity. There's an absurdity that is in there in print, and that's what we're referencing. That the Mayhem was an absurdity to be released the way it was and not be told about it. Okay, so on that note,
Just like what's she
I
cooking?
I just remember every time that they say in the bug fixes and tuning that they have fixed a number of in-game errors and typos, especially the one where 2 lines above that they fixed a race condition where something would happen. So, you know,
Race condition? I don't even know what that means.
you probably don't want to.
Okay.
It was supposed to be rare, but it was in fact race. So
Okay. Oh yeah. Oh, I remember that one. I do. I do remember that one. I did highlight that one. I did. Yeah. I'm sorry. I do recall what you're referring to. That was amusing. All right. Is there anything that anybody has to say that should go live on YouTube, or should we consolidate everything to a after show at this point in time?
let me laugh out that on that. Go live on YouTube.
oh god, it's 20 past. What happened? Time dilation.
I'm not as big on the time thing as some other people are. As long as we have good content and everything, you know, things that people would want to listen to, I'm willing to keep us live.
I mean-
you know, for 4 hours if you want to, you know.
I was sitting back and just having fun listening and occasionally making snide comments, and then suddenly like an hour and 20 minutes passed.
Well, I do want to say something if you guys don't care. I want to thank the Battle Pirates Crib page for all the support on my YouTube channel. Everyone pushing and actually going and seeing my videos. Thank you all.
Okay.
I will. This was a really good show, and you know, it's very, very rare that there's shows done that focuses on the newer players. And you know, I hope that we can get some new players in the game, and I hope that we can get new players watching this show. I mean,
Yeah.
I just
players in the damn shows because I want to grill them and find out what kind of issues they're facing.
And
That's what
unfortunately, that's the problem. Like, they just started playing this game. How are they even supposed to know that they're A, are shows, and B, something that they would want to do? Unless,
I post a link in every sector that I'm ever in on every show that ever comes on to make sure that some of the newer players, and I even put my little blurb in there that, you know, you might not learn shit, but go on there and watch it. You'll learn more than you know now.
you
Yeah.
at least have fun.
This was the original idea of the Friday show. I mean, the Wednesday show and most of the shows they either go completely freeform, or they're talking about, you know, well, they used to talk about the works in progress, but
Too soon.
yeah.
But now all we talk about is works getting fixed.
Yeah, or they talk about the release notes. And the original purpose of the Friday show was we wouldn't talk about either one of those things. We've got a good group here. I mean, I put the slides together this time, but you know, if there's a topic that you guys want to talk about that you think people should hear about, that's not from the forums, but it's about the game, and it doesn't have to be breaking news, but it's something that will inform the public. That's what the Friday show was originally about, and that's what I'm trying to steer it towards by doing this, because if you've watched it for a while, this is where we normally have like the geek corner and things like that, where we're trying to inform players about not what happened this week, but about the game in general, and provide a little bit of depth and knowledge to the people that listen to the show. So just my little 2 cents about what the Friday show was originally supposed to be about. And, you know, sometimes I just run out of ideas, you know. It takes me a while to put all this crap together. And if I don't have a real good idea, like where to start with, you know, then then we'll just talk about what happened this week.
Ask George. That son of a bitch has always got something to say.
Whatever.
I am not opinionated in any way, shape, or form.
I hear you, freaking Yankee.
Hey, I don't live up there no more.
The Tennessee Yankee. We're gonna watch that film.
I'll write that later on in life. Right now, I'm concentrating on that nice, famous blog of mine.
Hey, I was going to say back, you know, we're talking about new players and stuff. When I started in January 2011, my first raid, okay, there was black water. I didn't have a clue to what I was supposed to do. I was looking around, nothing but black water. I didn't know I was supposed to attack bases. Nobody ever told me that. You understand what I'm saying?
Sorry, I think Jeff's on mute, but yeah, I agree. Like when you start, there's no guidance whatsoever, right? Like that's true. How
Yeah,
you
you see-
what you should do.
You pretty much see a video of people going to go hit bases, stuff like that, and you think that's what you have to do to start out.
But you know, I think back then we never knew as players that we should be jumping on kick as far as giving direction to newer players. And if I would have known back then, I would have been jumping on them in forums that, you know, you need to give more information to new players and so forth and so on. But I never knew the game was going to get this big, and I didn't think it would last this long.
Yeah. And I think, you know, like in the first 2 years, there were so many new players that you actually could always figure stuff together in comms, hitting each other, testing stuff and whatnot, especially because it was cheap, right? I mean,
Right.
repaired in 30 minutes, 20 minutes. And so, and a lot of players were your level. So nowadays, there's so many mature players. And you look in a sector sometimes, new players trying to find, I think the lowest like a level 40 stronghold to do FM tier 1, tier 2, whatever. They have a hard time finding it sometimes because everywhere they look around, it's level 90, level 80, level 100 player, and there's nothing their level for them to do.
Well, you know, that's another thing that Kick needs to take a real close look at, is that even my alliance will jump to the sector 400s, for example, just picking that one out of the blue, because we know it's always in orange. We can always get whatever we need there, and we know what sectors to jump to. And newer players don't know that. They don't know where to go.
Hell, they probably don't even know how to jump. I mean,
And it does kind of suck that if you're a new player, you have to either A, go posting on forums, or B, know someone on Facebook to have them freaking let you jump. I still say they should make it where you can jump to a sector without having to have someone there.
Are we done with the show?
unless, I mean, does anyone else have anything more? I mean, I know me and Darren can talk all night about new players because that's just a thing, but
Thanks for the slides, Jeff. Well done.
I'm glad you liked them. I'm sorry I screwed up that last one.
That's
But
I think Laredo's banned me from chat and comms. I gotta go look. I don't know, because I've been fucking with him for too long.
well, I don't know. I'm not sure exactly which one. It was either Slice or
check-
Toyota that.
Hold on. Yeah, Laredo's telling you to go check your forum account.
Uh-oh.
That's never a good thing.
Probably got another 400 coins waiting on him.
Oh, come on.
Alrighty. So I guess we can go to the after show at this point, or okay. So we can so we can talk about Laredo.
Since he doesn't
Clearly.
want to come on, yeah.
All
That's
right,
a good
everybody,
idea.
we're going to
Laredo.
talk about Laredo.
Laredo, get on the goddamn after show.
Yep, alrighty. I'm gonna post the link now. Laredo 24/7.